Imagine you're standing in a room and someone walks in with a challenge. They tell you, I can't get any perspective on the issue. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Because when they say that, what they're really saying is they're unable to see things from a different angle. They've been looking at things in one way, and that way doesn't give them the clarity that they need. So what if you could help them step back just a little bit? What if you could guide them, not by simply telling them what to do, but by opening a door to a new way of thinking, a different kind of clarity? You see, when people say they can't get perspective, they might just be saying they haven't yet shifted the picture in their mind. And the picture is everything, isn't it? If they can see the situation from a different viewpoint, from a different angle, then the world begins to open up for them. Time and space, they're always involved in that shift. And when someone can shift the way they view time, do they experience space? That is when true change happens. So what could happen if you gently, yet purposefully, help them to create a little distance from the issue? What if you asked, what would it look like if you could step back from this and just for a moment see it from a wider perspective? Maybe by asking, you're already setting them up to see something new, to discover a new way of thinking, without them even realizing it. And imagine you're with them, sitting close to them. You don't need to overtly ask them to step back. You don't need to force it. It's enough to begin just by pacing and matching them, sitting the way they do, leaning forward when they lean forward, and then, without saying a word, you relax just a little. You sit back a little more. You give them space, just a little more space to breathe. You can almost feel the shift in the air between you. And what happens? They naturally follow, don't they? They begin to soften, to lean back just a little more. And without even realizing it, they begin to see the situation differently. So, when you reflect back what they said, you might find yourself breathing out slowly, exhaling deeply. It's not just about the words, it's about creating the moment of space between the two of you. That subtle space that invites a new perception, a new experience. It's in the way you create space, and how they begin to fill that space with new possibilities. Sometimes when you invite someone to stand up, move a little, and even look at something different, like a window that shows a broad landscape, you might notice something amazing happens. You step away from the problem, you get a bigger picture, and as you stand together and look out, you might ask, what's it like to see things from this perspective? It's incredible how such a simple shift can invite an entirely new way of thinking, without them even having to try. But here's the secret that many don't realize. Motivation often doesn't come from the I have to, or I should. Those words, I should or I must, they can feel heavy, like a weight that pulls them down, can't it? When someone says, I should do this, do they sound inspired? Do they sound ready to leap into action? No. And when you ask them, are you the kind of person who does things you should? What they typically say is no. Isn't it fascinating, the word should? It doesn't seem to move you towards action. But listen, what if you could help them shift those words just a little bit? What if you could help them think about the possibilities instead of the obligations? After all, when someone says, I can't do something, they often say, I can imagine the act of not doing it. They're not saying it's impossible, but they're just choosing not to engage. And that's a big clue, isn't it? If someone else can do it, so can they. Perhaps what's needed is a shift in how they think about what they can do. And that shift, it often comes through the questions, those modal operators, the can't, the should, the mustn't. See, when someone says, I can't do this, they're revealing a whole world of possibilities, just hidden beneath those words. What if instead of asking about the reasons that they can't, you asked, what will it be like when you do it? What will it look like when you're standing there, confident, speaking to a room? Notice how the mind starts searching for a picture, a representation, and just by asking that question, you've opened the door for a new possibility. Now take a moment to really listen when someone talks about motivation. Do they speak of must, have to, or should? Or do they speak of what they can do, and what they want to do, what they will do, And if they're not speaking in terms of what they can do, ask them, what would it be like to do this if you could? Because when they shift the way they think about it, the energy, the motivation comes flooding in. And remember this, when you hear someone say, I can't, what they're really saying is, I've chosen not to. The key is in helping them to realise the choice is theirs. And if they want to choose differently, they can. They can.